Thank you. Thank you for joining all of us here today. As many of you know, I am the granddaughter of a Mexican immigrant who came to America in search of a better life for himself and his family. If it wasn't for my grandfather's hard work and the opportunities this country offered him, I would not be serving the great state of Nevada as a U.S. Senator or serving as the first Latina ever in this nation's history. That is why President Trump and his administration's divisive anti-American, anti-immigrant actions are especially offensive to me, because they are hurting the hardworking immigrant families like mine who came to this country in search of a better life. Every new generation of immigrants further enriches the fabric and culture of our nation, and without them, this country would not be what it is today. We need to honor our history as a nation of immigrants and work to reform our immigration system. Experts across the ideological spectrum agree. Immigration reform will grow our economy, making our country stronger. Just this week, Janet Yellen, chairwoman of the Federal Reserve System, said that, and I quote, "Immigration is an important part of U.S. labor force growth, and a radical change to immigration would certainly affect the economy's potential growth." She also said, quote, that slowing the pace of immigration probably would slow the growth rate of the economy. Studies have shown that if we bring undocumented workers out of the shadows and put them on a pathway to citizenship, we would reduce the deficit by almost $1 trillion and increase our GDP by $832 billion. We would see incomes rise for American families by $470 billion and add hundreds of thousands of jobs. In contrast, a policy of mass deportation, which is exactly what this order calls for, would immediately reduce our nation's cumulative GDP over 10 years by $4.7 trillion. Removing all undocumented workers from my home state of Nevada would cost us $9.7 billion in economic activity, $4.3 billion in gross state product, and millions in tax revenue. That is millions that could be used to fix our roads, repair our schools, or care for our veterans. We would lose over 45,000 jobs. The extraordinary contributions of immigrants are especially evident today as workers and businesses across the country participate today in a day without immigrants, demonstrating how essential our immigrant workers and communities are to our society and economy. In Nevada, dozens of big businesses like Mariana's Supermarket have closed their doors for the day in solidarity with our immigrant communities and show the extreme damage President Trump's orders and anti-immigrant agenda would have on our country. The Trump administration blatantly ignores the indisputable benefits of immigration reform, instead demonizing and threatening our immigrant families and communities. Millions of hardworking families who are Americans in all but paper are now living in constant fear of being torn away from their families and forced out of the only country that they know and love. The President's executive order sends a clear message to our immigrant communities. You are targets for deportation, even if you have a clean record, even if you have children who are U.S. citizens, even if you have been living, working, and contributing to this country for years. The Trump administration is setting forth an unprecedented deportation machine, one that acts indiscriminately, without regard to the core American values of fairness, equality, and inclusiveness. We saw it in operation just last week, where ICE conducted raids across the country, sweeping up and arresting many who had no criminal records at all. This approach is wrong and immoral. Instead of working together, they're provoking fear and hate, and we should be working together to find a permanent solution to our immigration problems, not calling for mass deportations that will tear our families apart and devastate our economy. That's why my colleagues and I today are introducing a bill to rescind this order. We will not allow the administration's hateful, divisive, anti-immigration agenda to go unopposed. And while I wish this did not have to be the result of such an egregious executive order, I'm proud to have my first bill as a United States Senator focus on protecting the rights and safety of immigrant communities that make Nevada and this country so great. We must continue to work for an America that is inclusive and welcoming to all, not one that divides us and takes us backwards. And that means continuing to stand up and fight against President Trump's anti-immigrant agenda.